Hello and good afternoon. My name is Jack Holder. I am the editor for The Great Commandment. Joining me today is Jason Remick, and we are continuing our series of interviews for The Great Commandment Comics Anthology. If you'll notice, this is actually quite different timing-wise with our interviews. The reason being is we have over 50 creators spread out literally all across the world. Everyone has their own different schedules, lives, and journeys that are going on, and we are trying to be as accommodating as possible to make sure that not only do they get a chance to actually speak, but no matter where you are, you also get a chance to listen. You don't just need to be with me at 7 o'clock on the East Coast. If you are watching this, thank you so much. Please make sure to comment, give us any questions, share, and do all of that social media stuff. In fact, I'm going to help with that. We're going to post the link right now and ask you if you have any questions or comments. Please keep going. So, the first question, of course, is who are you, what's going on, and what are you talking about with the Great Commandment Anthology? That is a really good question that I have asked myself, and I will endeavor to answer it. Mm. Each and every one of us have commands that go on and fill our lives every single day. Love your neighbor as you would love yourself. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish tranquility, and so on and so forth. Go to your room and clean it. Do the dishes and actually put them away. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. But just like these commands are so integral to our lives, we are integral because we ask the question, what does that mean? We have these moral, legal, religious, spiritual commands, but we need to find out what they mean to know truly how they affect our lives. And so The Great Commandment is a comics anthology that is on Kickstarter right now, and it seeks to answer that very question of meaning. Over 24 creative teams have put together over 150 pages of comics answering this question with such amazing ideas as samurai corgis, Taoist hippos, more beeping than you could possibly imagine. That is what happens when you do a 1 o'clock interview. And you get a chance to see Christian, Jewish, atheist, educational, and so many others. Now, we want to make sure that you get a chance to see the creators and that the creators get a chance to answer questions. So I'm going to shoot this over to a longtime compatriot when it comes to doing anthologies. He is the creator of the webcomic Organic Fast Food, a self-described Christian wanderer. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Remick.
Hello.
Jason, tell us a little bit about who you are and your own works. And you are getting a couple of great from some people who might know you.
Yes, they seem to share my last name.
No pressure.
Yeah. So I am a comic creator, I guess one would call me. I've been working on organic fast foods for, God, I haven't kept track, a few years, at least 7 maybe. I sort of fell into comics after I went to film school. Film school didn't quite fit. I tried working in film industry. Film industry also didn't feel right. And much like my Christian wandering, my own career wandering, led me to video games and then eventually to comics. In my sort of desire and ambition to find a way to tell stories visually. It's always been sort of the core of my goal. When I went to film, that was what I wanted, was to visually tell stories. And then comics offered a great way for me to visually tell stories. Um, so I went there. Um, and how organic fast foods came about was mostly just uh, I was working in food restaurants because I have to pay my bills and pay off student loans. And um, I would come home every day telling my family stories of crazy customers and fun coworkers. And my sister made a comment of, um, whenever she hears me tell my stories, that she always pictures them as little comic strips. So I'm like, oh, that would be a fun comic strip to do. So I started initially. The concept for organic fast food would just be, short little comic strips about working in food service. But like I said, because I've always had the ambition of telling a story, very quickly it turned into me wanting to explore social issues or something in a long form story rather than just one off little comic strips. Um, so yeah, how I got into doing that. Sort of fell backwards into it.
Excellent. Now, you also have done a couple of pieces with me, first in Why Faith, and now you have the Storyteller's Circle. Can you tell us a little bit about that story, which is why people should get.
Yes. So the Storyteller's Circle. Where do I begin with the Storyteller Circle? Um,
You can start anywhere. It's a circle.
right, exactly. It's an infinite loop. Um, so you sent out an email with a prompt of um, wanting to explore commandment, and my first initial thought went to storytelling. Whenever throughout film school and throughout art school and whenever I go anywhere and encounter teachers in the art world, sort of saying, here are the rules to writing a story, here are the rules to um, creating good art. My gut impulse would always be like false, and want to prove them wrong. Um, I remember I had a script teacher in film school who made the comment that every script has to have 3 plot points. Um, and my gut impulse was to try to write a script without 3 plot points, and it was really hard to do that. And that was what I kept coming back to in all these sort of journeys, is that whenever I would encounter rules, my gut impulse would always be to try to break from that rule. But then through breaking from that rule, I would come to understand a deeper understanding of why that rule exists. It's not necessarily a requirement, but there's a way of which you are communicating with your audience, that rule helps you to communicate. So through learning to appreciate what the structures and what the rules for storytelling are, it helped me become a better communicator as a storyteller. And so that was what the Storyteller Circle was a sort of a 8-page synopsis of that journey for myself, of going from wanting to break from rules to wanting to learning to appreciate them in a new way.
Wonderful. And actually being able to talk about stories and uh, set rules. Anyone who's taken a creative writing course or has wanted to write a book, the initial response very much is, why are there rules?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to figure this out. Now, you actually have a very not similar story, but similar characters.
Yes.
Why
Yes.
So this is actually
So yes, this is a continuation, in a sense, a continuation from the characters in Why Faith, the first anthology in that we worked on, I decided I would reuse those characters because I sort of felt like I had set them up on a journey in the first Why Faith, so it made sense for me to want to continue with their journey and exploring faith questions with the same characters. And they're two good characters to explore these kind of concepts with. So I certainly tried to write it in a way that didn't require a direct follow up. You know, they are their own self-contained stories, and I would even argue that you could interchange which one comes first, maybe. But there is a continuation, at least a simile of characters and themes being explored, where you have the faith character going on similar journeys in both stories, but in sort of self-exploration in sort of different ways, I guess. And as she is sort of exploring the world and understanding the world better for herself.
Absolutely. And when we talk about these sorts of introspections into genre and the rules therein, we definitely want to stress that Jason's work is some of the most colorful and illustrative that I've seen. When he talks about breaking conventions and storytelling, he does so in ways that makes your head spin in the best way possible. So especially you'll see that in organic fast food as well. There will be pages that are black and white, and then you can tell where Jason's like, okay, we are going to have some fun, and we are going to have continent-sized elephants with whole on top of them walking through a mountain range.
Yeah. It might be from my film school days, but I'm always looking for a way to visually convey concepts in my stories just as much as verbally. So, you know, in the organic fast foods, you'll have scenes that take place in the restaurant which are black and white because the soullessness of working in food, in the food industry is devoid of color. But then when you go into one of the characters, Jay has his own inner world and inner fantasy world that he sort of acts out his own emotions in. And in that world, it's the most colorful and most vibrant and most grandiose in terms of visual storytelling. And it's meant to sort of be that sort of visual storytelling of he feels there's no color in his day-to-day life at work, but in his own inner world, he can have a much more rich experience.
So, what you talk about here with Why Faith, the Great Commandment, and organic fast food, you seem to really want to delve into personal issues, as in everyone's personal issues and major questions of the day. So, how do you actually work on talking about all of these major issues without being either too preachy to where people want to turn it off, or too wishy-washy to the point of irrelevance?
That's a good question. I think the thing that I struggle with as a writer is I think I lean in the preachy side, and then I always, through the editing process, pull it back because like I'm being too preachy. I need to connect with people on their level. So certainly spending a lot of time just listening to people and what they're talking about and what bothers them, and not trying to preach to them is a learned skill that I'm still doing. I never want to be in the place of preaching it. And my natural inclination towards being preachy might come from the fact that I have two parents who are preachers. So that's where I pick it up. But you know, as the story circle story will point out, my goal in storytelling is always to connect with an audience, and I certainly am well aware that people shut down when they're being preached to. So I'm more leaning to the side of I'm going to have a conversation with you, and this is what I'm wrestling with. This is what I've come to understand. This is through my studies of philosophy and psychology and stuff like that. This is how I understand the world works. And I'll share it with you in this way. But I'm not trying to tell you this is the universal function for how everybody experiences things. I'm always aware that I'm telling a story subjectively and not and my subjective experiences are not the same experiences of everybody. So trying to invite more conversation than just sort of tell it.
And that's actually like very much the goals for Great Commandment, and why Jason and I very much share the pastor's child moniker several times over for both of us, child, grandchild, or nephew. So I'm sure both sides of our family probably would mention very often about our comics and the work, and go straight into, okay, your theology is not entirely correct or based upon supporting evidence. But it's that difficulty that we have to go through. The two of us come from not strict but ordered religious backgrounds, that we actually have grown up in what I would say is the best church experiences, like the easiest. And it's trying to figure out how to translate and sympathize and make connections with others who really haven't. Mother, aren't you? We are definitely lucky, though. Wedding was definitely fascinating, especially given many other factors. But especially trying to figure out how to translate in a background. You and me being in comics, you mention Christianity, and either one or two things that's going to happen: a pullback or an expectation of examining the hypocrisy. How do you find that way of talking about the positive aspects of a major religion, of which I am a part, that some very big skeletons in our closets?
Again, it's a matter of my own subjective experience of Christianity having been a positive one growing up. So it certainly was always a conflict within me. You know, when you grow up intimidated as a teenager in Christianity, it can certainly become that sort of rolling your eyes at your parents wanting to take you to another church function kind of element to it. But looking back, there was a lot of positivity there, and a lot of community, and a lot of just good-natured people that I was surrounded by my entire life. So when I got out into the cold, harsh world of college, and found that the experience wasn't universal for people who grew up also in Christianity but didn't have a positive experience of it, as well as people who grew up without any sort of basic history. And they were also struggling with a sense of connection to the world. That I had to make sense of a term like Christianity, which meant something to me that was completely different from that word meaning something to somebody else. And figuring out how to bridge the gap between both truths. I don't necessarily think my truth of Christianity is the universal truth of what Christianity is, and I don't think their truth of what they experience, whether it be negative or not, is also universal, but also not false. I think it's also still a truth. So that was where I tend to start with my Christian wandering, is having that sort of connection with people who didn't have a positive experience of it, um, and making sense of my own positive experience of it, and then trying to meld those two worlds that seem unmeldable, but in a way that made sense to me, and then share my findings with the world through art and storytelling.
So you think that art and storytelling really help you in both exploring your own faith and translating it to the world?
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly how I make sense of the world, um, and how I learn. Um, we grow up in a very storyteller culture, where we're often constantly inundated with storytelling all around us, from the advertisements that we take in to the um, even our politics, are a matter of telling a story that gets you wanting to get involved, not get involved. Um, so storytelling seems to be a way in which we, as human beings, just sort of navigate the world. Um, and I've certainly found a need, a place in turning to storytelling, in those places of darkness when I'm lost, and I'll find a good story that pulls me out of that darkness. Um, so storytelling has always been, yeah, that tool that I use both to bring comfort to myself, to bring comfort to others, and to make sense of things that aren't making sense to me.
Excellent. Let's talk about storytelling in darkness, because that's a really great segue into what's going on right now.
Mhm.
Because coronavirus and uh, everything with shutdowns has completely changed the entire landscape for everything. I know that doing Why Faith and the Great Commandment, it was exact same editor, uh, exact same number of pages, same types of characters, and yet the experiences were most likely massively different. Do you know
Mm.
what it was like doing that and working on organic fast food in the time of COVID? What opportunities and difficulties it presented?
um, More, certainly in the time of COVID, there are more difficulties than non-difficulties. Um, yeah, you're often in this comic world. A lot of people who work in the comic also have to have a day job, because you're not always going to make a stable enough living in comics to be able to support yourself, at least initially. So I worked a day job for as long as I've been working in comics, just because I need to pay my bills that way. Um, and I've always been able to find a balance between making time for comics and doing, working, in my job. But somehow in the mess of COVID, that got a lot more squirrely and harder to manage. Um, Even though my hours didn't necessarily change, I was fortunate enough to be an essential worker, so I didn't lose my job. But there's something to the stress of the job that made juggling the two a lot more challenging. Um, so I don't know that I have a whole lot of advice or explanation of how to do it, um, other than, you know, I was watching some video recently about the the growth mindset versus fixed mindset of, when facing a challenge. seeing it as an opportunity, looking for the silver linings and seeing it as an opportunity to grow. And I tend to naturally fall into that category more often than not when faced with challenges. I could have my battles with depression, but I always, on some level, see a way to connect that with what the rest of the world is going through. There's something unifying, and we're all in this darkness together. So being able to write a short comic strip expressing my frustration with how things are going, on some level connecting with others in the same space, and that gives me a silver lining that I can sort of aim to.
I definitely need to add this question from Remick. The pain you are experiencing during COVID and witnessing it in others become part of a new storytelling enterprise. Uh, Answering for myself, the answer is definitely. Uh, I've already seen stories of poor folks who wrote books that were supposed to be contemporary books. So this takes place in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
That's they wrote in 2019 or 2018 because that is definitely how writing and creating works. But no one was stuck inside. This is a new and different reality
Mm-hmm.
that we are talking about, and it's the different reactions. I would say also with the storytelling enterprise that you have to talk about. There are multiple stories that are being told about the exact same pandemic in vastly different conclusions that you have to reckon with.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, do you want to take it?
Yeah, as somebody my main comic storyline, Organic Fast Food, takes place in a restaurant, and the restaurant industry is completely flipped around in the past year from where it was when I started writing, my draft for season 2. So, having the experience of being an essential worker in restaurant industries, and how much that terminology has changed now in the COVID world, certainly makes me reflect on exactly how I'm writing these characters. I'm not sure that I would ever, make my Organic Fast Food storyline into something that is, specifically about COVID. Um, I worry a lot about doing storylines that are very specifically set for me, for something that's very specifically set in a specific time. I worry that people who are reading that, who are not part of that experience or that part of that time, will struggle to connect with it. But there is something universal to the experience that you can sort of derive from it that um, I would probably look into the storyline, and certainly writing writing about food service. Now that I have had a very different experience of what working in food service is like, it's only a challenge I'm struggling to sort of figure out.
What would Quinn say to people suffering today from your fast food world? First off, for people who don't know fast food, they would definitely need to get the back.
Yeah. Quinn is Jay is the main character of Organic Fast Food, and he has a cat named Quinn, who is Jay's best friend and companion throughout the entire first season. And I don't know what Quinn would say. He was often a proxy for my family a lot of the times in the storyline. Whenever I needed somebody to represent what my family would do in this particular scenario, Quinn became that character in the story. So I guess Quinn would say whatever my family would say, which would be a lot of stress eating Count Chocula um, and being loving and encouraging. A mix of the
Yeah, this virus and everything else, what it has also done is made us really realize which, you talked about essential workers and very much almost life uh, we challenged and through these challenges figured out which jobs were not just essential, but which ones could actually be done in a different manner. The amount of remote working that just up overnight is most likely going to stay, which is very beneficial to the indie creators who rely exclusively on social media. But the amount of workers in all fast food, not just organic fast food like Be Good. Thank you that the drive-through was invented many, many years ago, so that had already been figured out. But B, thank you to so many of these people who did in fact risk their lives in the initial months and continue to do so. Literally to just help the wheels keep spinning on everything that is going on. So, moving forward, this anthology is supposed to be about personal interpretation, personal growth and experiences from outside factors. It is time for us to break our own prompts because we have the creator right here and ask you, Jason, what do you want people to take from the Storyteller Circle? What message or feeling or retrospective?
For me, it's a comment or a exploration of, like I was saying earlier, that structures do have a value. There are certainly structures worth challenging and worth tearing down and worth breaking from. But then there's maybe some kernel of through some structures that connect us with each other and that make navigating those connections between us and each other more manageable. That's sort of what Storyteller Circle is for me. It's a comment on that that rules and commandments, can both be questioned, and then there's also a deeper truth to them sometimes that is overlooked. That's about how do we connect with each other.
I often think that the unquestioned faith is something not worth having. The fact that you can actually get a deeper meaning and understanding and appreciation for certain conventions is reached often by just interrogation and constant questioning. In that vein, another question: will you be targeting youth in these two anthologies? They seem to be great for their own faith exploration. So, targeting youth, I as editor, I definitely want youths to be able to read this. I have a fantastic story about one of the last conventions I managed to get to back in January. and actually getting a chance for a young girl to read Why Faith. This very much, the Great Commandment and Why Faith are based around creating awareness and raising good questions. And that's really what lies at their core. The fact that a lot of the creators look like me and Jason, and and the two of us come from these backgrounds. Jason's gone to signings with me, and you can actually see the reticence on people when like, okay, is this a convert me to Christianity book? It is not. I like the idea of Reverend Remick of faith exploration. It is very much trying to allow people to explore. Pastors and youth leaders definitely know that at Sunday school, once they reach a certain age, kids have questions that you're really not so sure about how to answer, especially when you get into the nitty-gritty of the Bible. Like, there are two creation myths, one right after the other, and they don't match. And Jesus's genealogy is different depending on which gospel you're reading. But faith exploration is the idea with this. So we always say, if you're trying to figure out about your faith, this is a really great book for you. If your kid is asking a lot of questions and you really want them just to have some really fun comics that can help with this exploration, this book is for them. If you want them to shut up and just accept that the faith that you're a part of is just ultimately right, these are not the books for that. But Jason's works definitely, as a wanderer, these books definitely have been explorations on faith for you personally, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always liked the term Christian wanderer. My favorite hymn is "Come Thou Fount," which has a line in it that I'm going to get this wrong, but it's something to the effect of "Bind thy wandering heart to thee." And I've always just sort of liked that imagery of somebody, who's wandering in their exploration of the world and has questions, but has a tether to something that they can come back to, a shoreline or a lighthouse that they can safely come ashore to whenever the storms are getting a little rough. So that's always been my experience with Christianity. Is I like to wander, I like to explore, I like to understand, neuroscience and psychology and philosophy. I'm always fascinated by those things. But there's a homeness to Christianity. That's always been a place that I come back to, and so that innate wrestling between wanting to understand the world, but also having this comfort zone in this place of faith has always been a part of what I write about as an artist and what I explore. And so Why Faith has certainly been a very great outlet for me to have those conversations a lot more directly, internally and externally.
Excellent. So we now get to the what I call the QVC portion of this interview, because it very much is talking about an anthology that is going on right now. So if you like what Jason and I have been talking about, and if you like Jason and I, you should really get the books. They are on Kickstarter right now for almost the next 4 weeks. We are currently sitting at $1,987 from 54 amazing backers. Once we get 13 more dollars, MJ Massey, who was on last night, will be adding her own comic, Blackball #1, a swinging 20s, roaring 20s fantasy comic series that will be going. That will be added completely free for all backers. Sue, you have a number of folks who are in, but they seem to be having trouble making comments in. If you can if you can send the questions our way, we will try to answer them because we are here to answer questions and to let people know about these books because you can get a lot of amazing books here. Why Faith is available for purchase through the Kickstarter, as is, of course, The Great Commandment. We are doing a deluxe version of Commandment with added artwork and behind-the-scenes work. We also have some canvas prints from some of our artists, including Angela Odling is offering up the cover, that amazing cover with commandments way up in the sky on canvas prints. Our resident artist, Jason Remick, is also going to be doing a canvas print. We are going to be releasing that reward probably within the next hour or two. So you can get amazing canvas artwork from Jason Remick. So you can hang that up on your wall. If you're a family member of Jason's, you can always embarrass him. I am sure you'll always be willing to blush when you see.
Yeah, I've quite a few drawings that my family love to embarrass me with.
Oh, all right. So, Sue, definitely be talking about, send those comments. I think she's like willing to send in, get a canvas print.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we have to look forward to? We have 4 more weeks of this. I am looking at the calendar. So tomorrow I will be with Eddie Headington, Teresa Del Pilar, and Sam Prowse, the creators for the Great Commandment story Warrior Breed. All I have to say about that is Samurai Corgis.
Really great artwork.
I love that artwork. I love being able to showcase Jason's work here as well. Jason's got multiple things in here. So while Sue is typing in these questions, now let's actually have some fun here, Jason. Let's talk about season 2 of Organic Fast Food. What is going on? What are you thinking about? And when do we get to see it?
I'm not going to make any promises on when you get to see it. I left the draft over at my desk, so I'm not going to go grab it. I have a binder that's pretty thick of me having written out almost every scene, and then I'm just trying to go through them and just sort of like, no, I don't need this scene, I don't need this scene, I don't need this scene, and just sort of reorganize it all. My hope is to have the draft done by the end of this year, and then be able to get full swing into artwork next year, and hopefully have it done and out at some point next year. That is the plan, but I don't want to make promises. So yeah, it's coming along. It has. I'm really happy with the storyline. I really like the core concept, and I think people are going to really enjoy it when it's done. but I'm afraid to make promises.
Excellent. So now we are getting some of these questions. What is the hardest part of your artwork from start to finish? Just a writer, so I am definitely going to shoot that over.
The hardest part of the artwork is same thing with writing. It's often just coming up with the concept. The conceptual phase tends to, nailing down something that you're comfortable with, or that you says what you want it to say, tends to be the hardest part. Once you have the idea going, at least for me, letting the muscle memory of drawing and then lining and coloring, it becomes pretty spread off, and just let my brain do it, and it does it. Although not always perfectly. There are certain aspects that are more tedious than others. Probably getting the perfect line work done is probably the most tedious. Coloring is just fun. You can just explore and see what comes out. So I love the coloring phase because it's just a lot of exploration and just sort of think, this doesn't work, this does work, this looks cool, this doesn't look cool. So yeah, I think conceptually is always the hardest part, just kind of coming up with something that conveys what I want to convey.
For me personally, as a writer, the hardest part for me has got to be description. Conceptually, for me, is very much the fun part, because what you're doing is thinking of cool ideas and trying to figure out what they are. But description, setting, especially if you're doing prose and novel work, the really hard part is making what's in your head actually make sense, especially when it's just written out on a page. I am very blessed and lucky to have the opportunity to work with a whole host of amazing artists. So sometimes I'm like, I want an awesome battle here, or I want a castle that is frozen in ice. And there are artists who are like, and this is what you're actually asking for. Yes. This one is definitely for you, Jason. Do you start with the story or the sketching?
It depends on the scene. I'm a very visual person, so a lot of the times I'll picture like a movie in my head, how I want the shot to look. And there's one of my proudest and favorite scenes in organic fast foods is a scene that has no dialogue at all. It's all images. And so anytime I can get to that point in telling a story where it's purely through the images, that's when I'm happiest. So sometimes I will start with the sketches because I have the images in my mind of what the angles are and what the framing for the shots are. So sometimes I'll start with sketches, and then other times there's a concept that I want to explore philosophically or psychologically, and so writing it out is what I need to do in order to sort of get through. This is what I want to say on this sort of thing, and this is this kind of space I need for these words on the page, and then work the sketches around that. So it depends on what the scene is.
Excellent. This question's definitely for me. If you're a writer, how do you work with an illustrator? Very carefully, and yet at the same time openly. Writing a setting in prose is very different than how you do so for a comic or for an illustrator. It is a lot less formal, actually, because what you're trying to do really is you're not trying to get your exact perfect idea. And what you are trying to get is enough information so that the artist can take that and combine it with their talents and imagination to make what your initial idea was even better. So I'm not going to, if we're going back to Frozen Castle, I'm not going to say, and the parapets have this much ice on it, and there is snow right in the main courtyard. It's going to be more just here's what I want, here's what is absolutely plot relevant, and here's where I think it would be really freaking awesome for you to just explore and go wild. Um, in comics, you get fight scenes, and sometimes I'm just like, you have 3 panels. Here's who's supposed to win.
Mm-hmm.
Question from an artist. What is your favorite medium? He uses watercolor.
Favorite medium? I don't know. There's always pros and cons to everything. I do most of my work digitally now, and so I really am enjoying digital stuff. Um, there's a lot of tools that I'm exploring digitally that make the process a lot more smoothly. But there's a lot I miss to traditional artwork too. There's some happy mistake that you can have with watercolor or marker um, that you know that make the piece give the piece the most character than digital does. I don't know that I have a favorite medium. If anything, I'd probably just say pencil. It seems like a kind of a bland answer, but I love just looking at the sketchbook and just drawing it sometimes whenever I need to sort of work out an idea.
Excellent. And not a question, but just straight up from Brenda. Congrats, Jason. Brenda, get the book.
Yeah.
If you really want the book, once again, here is the link that you can get The Great Commandment. You can get Why Faith. You can get deluxe versions. You will soon be able to get a canvas print from Jason. We are coming fast in on the hour mark. Is there anything else that you want to personally add, Jason?
No, I don't think so. I think I covered everything I wanted to say. Just get the book, get both, buy both Why Faith and Great Commandment. They're both good books with a lot of great artists in there and a lot of great storytellers. Not just me. So.
Wonderful. I'm going to echo that. Once again, it is The Great Commandment. We have one more. I'm going to go with just one last question. And if we have more, that just means we're going to need Jason to come back another day.
Yeah.
So, question from an artist. How long have you been drawing, Jason? How long have you written these stories, Jack? I have been writing since 2004. I have been writing semi-professionally since 2015. And I have been putting Why Faith and everything since we started publishing last year. Have you been publishing, Jason?
I've been drawing my entire life. I've been doing artwork my entire life. In my early teenage years, I drew a lot of little comics that never got very far. I would draw a lot in my teenage years. I was mostly known in high school for being an artist. I've been drawing my entire life. I took a bit of a break when I went into film. I wasn't drawing as much then, and then when I circled back around to comics, picked it up. And I've been working on organic fast food again for maybe 7 or 8 years. So it's been 7 or 8 years of doing this particular style and this particular type of storytelling and drawing. Um, and then, my first time getting anything published or working in print was Wide Face, which was, last year. Um, so yeah, it depends on what you define as when I started.
Yes. Uh, those who cannot get on and want to watch this later, this will be available. This is being broadcast uh, li- live on two different channels on Facebook, as well as my personal channel on YouTube, which is Arcane Industries. Jason will have links and will be sharing a lot. I did promise last question, but this one is really important and has been talked about constantly, but it needs to be kept talking about. What do you say to me to hold on? Uh, in the late 2000s, early 2010s, I will take a message from the It Gets Better program. It does. You will not see it. Progress seems very difficult and very drawn out. Your successes very much will seem minimal and your failures monumental. Uh, the way for you to hold on is a weird combination of being an introvert and an extrovert. You have to find ways to lean on people. That's one of the reasons why I love the use of social media as well as building your own webpage, because then you can help showcase your own work as well as talk with people about it. Art is definitely worth it to hold on, and we do believe in you. If you are a teenager, trust me, you have a lot more time than you think you do. You do not have a bestseller or be in a gallery before you're 20. I'm 30, and I've been self-publishing, and it has really been through friends and family, but somehow we're able to keep going 5 years strong.
Yep. Yeah, I will certainly echo what he said. In terms of my own struggles and battles with depression, even to this day, I have my highs and my lows. It certainly goes up and down. It's not as consistent. You'll get to a plateau and suddenly you'll be happier after that. It's always going to circle back around, but the circle does get easier to get through each time. Um, for me, a lot of it was a matter of finding different definitions of success. You uh, it's easy in the social media world to sort of look at other artists who are getting thousands of likes and a lot of attention, particularly teenage me, wrong to be heard by the people around me, by the peers around me. So I think that's part of the reason why I value storytelling as a connection tool, because it was a source for me to try to connect in ways that I didn't feel like I was connecting, as a teenager. So, finding a way to define success in a manner that matters to me, that always gave me a way to, I didn't get this that I wanted, but I got this, and this is something that was really valuable to me. My story might not have gotten hundreds of views, but I got one really great review from somebody who said that the story really meant something to them, and that was a success on its own. So yeah, it gets better can be sometimes a challenge, but you're not alone in the journey. Everybody is dealing with this, and that gives you a way to empathize with others that will make those connections that build you up a lot easier, and more to life, and building that way and connecting.
Excellent. So we are definitely going to call it here as we eclipse the hour mark. The book is called The Great Commandment. The anthology is on Kickstarter right now. Go check it out. Please share this video around. I hope to see you at 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. And please bring your questions, please bring your comments, and please share your enthusiasm. We vastly appreciated having this Q&A at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. God bless and take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.